Once upon a time, there was a small town nestled in the woods. It was an idyllic place, with friendly locals and beautiful scenery. But there was something strange about the town that only a few people knew. There was a house at the edge of town that had been abandoned for years, and everyone knew to stay away from it. The house was said to be haunted by the ghosts of the previous owners, a family that had been brutally murdered inside. One day, a group of teenagers decided to explore the abandoned house. They thought it would be a fun adventure, but little did they know what horrors awaited them inside. As they approached the house, they could feel an eerie presence surrounding it. The air grew colder, and the trees rustled ominously. The front door creaked open on its own, and the group cautiously entered the house. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the only light came from the moon shining through the windows. As they made their way through the darkened rooms, they began to hear strange noises. At first, it was just the sound of footsteps echoing through the halls. But then they heard whispers, and the sound of something scraping against the walls. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panic set in as they realized they were not alone. They could hear something moving in the shadows, and they knew that it was not friendly. The group tried to make their way to the front door, but it was locked from the outside. They were trapped, with whatever was inside the house with them. As they frantically searched for a way out, they began to notice strange symbols etched into the walls. They were written in a language that no one could understand, but they knew that it was a warning of some kind. They had stumbled upon something dark and sinister, and now they were paying the price. The whispers grew louder, and the scraping sounds became more frantic. The group huddled together, praying for a way out. But it was too late. The creature had found them. It was a grotesque monster, with long, sharp claws and a face twisted in rage. It let out a deafening scream, and the group knew that their fate was sealed. They tried to run, but it was no use. The monster was too fast. One by one, the teenagers were dragged off into the darkness, their screams echoing through the halls. The last one left was the bravest of them all. He stood his ground, facing the monster with a fierce determination. The monster charged at him, but he dodged out of the way, grabbing a nearby torch. He lit it and held it up, illuminating the creature's hideous face. The monster let out another scream, and then it was gone. The teenager breathed a sigh of relief, but he knew that the nightmare was not over yet. He had to find a way out of the house and warn the town about what he had seen. He ran through the darkened halls, searching for a way out. Finally, he burst through the front door and into the moonlit night. He ran as fast as he could, not stopping until he reached the town square. There, he told everyone what had happened, warning them to stay away from the abandoned house. No one believed him, dismissing his story as the wild imaginings of a teenager. But the brave young man knew what he had seen, and he knew that the monster was still out there, waiting for its next victim. From that day on, the town never spoke of the abandoned house again. It was as if they had all agreed to forget about it, to pretend that it never existed. But the brave teenager knew the truth. As the days passed, the teenager couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything else. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the monster's twisted face, and every time he heard a noise, he jumped. His friends tried to comfort him, but they didn't understand what he had been through. They didn't know the terror that he had felt, the fear that still gripped him even now. He knew that he had to do something, to face his fears and find a way to stop the monster. He returned to the abandoned house, determined to uncover the truth. He searched every room, every closet, every corner, but he found nothing. The symbols on the walls had disappeared, and the house was eerily quiet. As he was about to leave, he heard a noise coming from the basement. He cautiously made his way down the stairs, his heart pounding in his chest. When he reached the bottom, he saw something that made his blood run cold. There, in the center of the room, was a circle of candles. And in the center of the circle was the monster. It was even more terrifying up close, with its gnarled claws and rotting skin. But the teenager didn't flinch. He knew what he had to do. He stepped forward, holding out a cross that he had found in the house. The monster recoiled, screeching in pain. The teenager advanced, reciting a prayer that he had heard from his grandmother. The monster shrieked, and then it was gone. The teenager breathed a sigh of relief, but he knew that he couldn't rest yet. He had to find out what had happened to the family that had lived in the house, to find out why the monster had been there. He searched through old newspapers and police records, and what he found shocked him to his core. The family had been murdered by a cult that worshipped the monster, sacrificing them to appease it. The teenager knew that he had to put an end to the cult to prevent anyone else from suffering the same fate as the family. He spent weeks gathering evidence, tracking down the cult's members, and finally, he was ready. He led a group of brave townspeople to the cult's secret lair, armed with crosses and holy water. The cultists put up a fierce fight, but in the end, they were no match for the determined group. The teenager emerged from the lair victorious, having put an end to the cult and banished the monster forever. He was hailed as a hero, and the town finally recognized the danger that had lurked in their midst. But the teenager never forgot what he had been through, never forgot the terror that he had felt. He knew that the monster was still out there, waiting in the shadows, ready to strike again. And he vowed to always be vigilant, to always be ready to fight back against the darkness.